Fuad, selection-wise for the manager, what do you think that looks like on Sunday? You know, there'll have to be a bit of maybe looking after one or two. There's been a bit of chat about McAllister, just where he is in terms of fitness. Feels like it's taken him a little bit of time. I think he plays all of the game the other night against Bolivia, I think. By all accounts, looks a little bit rusty. What do you expect that starting 11 to look like on Sunday?
Well, that immediately makes me, makes me want to keep on the bench at least and ease him back in. I think, we talk about, yes, it's important beating what's in front of you and getting those 3 points. But, there is a bigger picture to look at in terms of the next couple of weeks. And there's enough quality around that squad to kind of make do. The Jones injury does make it a bit more difficult, doesn't it? Because, in terms of options, like you'd hope Szoboszlai can get back into midfield, and the midfield kind of dictates itself then with Gravenberch, him and Wirtz. But I think he will look to be quite consistent, like we've been saying, in terms of his starting lineup. The one big one I would kind of really consider and think about is Robertson. I feel like he hasn't made an appearance in any of the first 3 games. He was sort of asked about it when he was away on international duty, and it sounded like assurances were made in terms of game time. He very much understood the kind of picture, and I feel like this might be one where you get him in for the start of this run, and then Kerekes gets a Champions League game as a way of kind of betting into that, making that step up into playing Champions League football. He hasn't had experience of that yet, has he? So I would look to start Robertson in this just to get him involved in terms of on the pitch. I'm sure there's loads he's doing off it, but I think this would be one where you can do that and you still have plenty in terms of attacking outlets and play. And Robertson himself, is dangerous on that flank as well when we want him to be. So that's the only one I would really kind of consider.
Talked before, Cav, about maybe there's not loads and loads of rotation options, but I think in terms of the fullbacks, there absolutely is. Frimpong's back in training. Szoboszlai's done great there. Conor Bradley plays well, I would say, over the international break. I watched him against Germany. Half, full of spirit.
He's great, isn't he?
So I think that's an area where maybe you look at it and thinking, well, they could do something, Liverpool, and take Fuad's point about Robertson, and obviously there's a game on Wednesday as well, and I'm sure he wouldn't have played in a Merseyside derby. So where do you land with some of those kind of challenges around those fullback areas?
Connor's a particular favourite of mine, taken to him straight away. Andy Robertson's probably the left back we've ever had. That's some statement in itself, isn't it? And made up with the other 2 guys that we've got, you could certainly make a case for Robertson to be why he should play at Burnley against Atletico in the derby. You can always make a case for Andy Robertson, that sound.
There's legitimately a case for all 3 of those games.
Absolutely different cases and cases that you want. So we're extremely well off there in that regard. And, Kerekes, flying machine, and it was very encouraging against Arsenal. I don't like the idea of Frimpong and Kerekes both playing in the same back 4 away from home, because Frimpong's as little as I am, and Kerekes isn't much bigger. And I know that's not the be-all and end-all, and it doesn't make any difference if you've got the ball. But you can be playing a team off the park, and they're 1 free kick away from changing the complexion of a match. Do you know what I mean? So that's a little bit of a anxiety, because I don't think we've got the biggest team we've ever had, put it that way. So that's one thing. I wouldn't necessarily start Frimpong and Kerekes at Burnley. I can see why that might be different against Atletico at home in a Champions League game. I definitely want Conor Bradley playing. Yeah, definitely want him in there. I think there's another game somewhere else for Frimpong, so I'd start with him. And I'm absolutely cool either way with regard to Robertson there. And then with regard to the midfield, then I personally wanted McAllister to be substitute against Arsenal, but I wouldn't be complaining if he was starting. And I feel exactly the same way this time. I think I don't know if he's a player's player or a manager's player, because he's the sort of player that any manager would want, and sort of every player would want to play alongside. But you want to fly on all the cylinders, and he clearly isn't at the moment. And is it better that we have, if they're all available, if we have Gravenberch and then you've got Szoboszlai and Wirtz in the midfield, and is that sort of, there's enough energy in there, is there enough winning tackles in there, is there enough invention in those 3? Well, I think we've ticked all the boxes there. And is there another game for McAllister to come in? And if you need the guile in the Champions League or knows his way around the derby, then McAllister can come in there. So I think so talking about limitations a bit earlier, I think we are at this moment, while they're all fit, in a good position. But yeah, if you go back to it, I'd like to see Bradley playing, and then I'm happy either in the left back, and I think that then 3 in the middle. I think the rest of it picks itself.
I think it'll be Bradley, Fuad. On the midfield points, I think it might be one where he just looks at it and thinks, well, you know, McAllister's out. I think it was the game against Bolivia. I think they played Argentina. Then there's, you know, you could go Gravenberch. Maybe you want to give Szoboszlai a game in midfield after him doing the stint at full-back, almost as a bit of a, we know your boxes off there, lad. Like, now you're back in midfield. You mentioned Florian Wirtz before, and does it feel like a game for him? You want him to get off the mark, don't you, for Liverpool quickly? Because there's a little bit of, say, heat on him. It's coming from opposition fans, really, who are talking about his price tag and stuff like that. Interesting to see some of the add-ons and what the breakdown of those was over the weekend. I think it was Joyce who mentioned how Liverpool would get to the 116 rather than the £100 million. They'd have to go some way to get to that. We know there's a player in there full of talent. You see the goal against Northern Ireland. It's an unbelievable free kick. You just want to see it in a Liverpool shirt sooner rather than later. Yeah,
totally. I mean, people are impatient on there, and especially when it's opposition fans. That there's a thing now where transfers come in after being instant kind of success and get off the ground straight away. And, you know, obviously Ekitike has done that. So you kind of see that and you want it to be translated there. But I think the nature of the position, again, I talk about the games he's had to kind of play in and deal with. There's been so much happening in them, and the opposition have been so difficult. Add into the fact you are new, you've just started playing with these players in a disrupted kind of pre-season. So there's so many different caveats there to why we haven't seen the best in that sense. But the encouraging thing is, I think he's been doing the other midfieldy bits that I wasn't too sure how he would adapt to. I feel like he's got himself around loads. I don't know the numbers, but I'd imagine they're really high. Felt like against Newcastle in that first half, just on the eye test, he was absolutely everywhere, just trying to get stuck in and kind of do the kind of dirty work as much as possible. But yeah, this is one where, like we're talking about penning Burnley back. That's when we've seen the best of him at Leverkusen, when they've just completely dominated, been on top of teams, you know, playing really quick passes, and then it goes to him to play the one with a bit of magic, and I feel it's set up perfectly for that.
I hope you're enjoying this free show at the moment. Loads of excellent, exciting stuff on the Anfield app. If you want to be part of the whole thing, you can download the Anfield app and go from there. Or you can subscribe via the YouTube membership as well for video-only content and other bits and pieces. We love doing these shows. We love that you watch them. So come, be part of the journey with us.